I hope you're ready for some illogic. Last time we went over our Week 7 battle against Chad and his team from Seattle. Please go check that video out first if you have not done so already, as we went over the team builder and battle, which, spoiler alert, the Buffalo Bouffalant tacked on the final W necessary for a perfect season in a 3-0 victory off of a late-game Alolan Doug trio. That means it's now time for playoffs, which I'm very excited for, as a bit of a test for the rest of the league. I've gone pretty in-depth with my analyses and even spoke to the other coaches about what worked and what didn't, what I expected to come, what maybe could have happened. All that together should make for an interesting match against everyone who gets a second chance at preparing for me. We're starting things off with a match against the number 8 seed, the Blessed Walreins, coached by Clark. We defeated him at the midway point of the season with a 4-0 victory that was nearly a Kyurem-Black sweep and was also nearly a disaster at the hands of a cursing Ferrothorn. I honestly believe it was one of my worst played matches in the league, so let's see if maybe I can get my head on straight this time around. It is crunch time. As for Clark on his side, he finished the season 1-6, with his sole victory being a pretty convincing win over the Close Combat Club, a team who also beat the numbers 2 and 3 seeds, so Clark is still a talented, competent player, and we cannot take it for granted. So once again, we'll be going over the team builder and battle. Timestamps will be in the description. And before I forget, I plan on doing a little commentary on various playoff matches on the Wooper Club League page, and I know they've also already done a bit of commentary on this match on the page as well, so please go check out the main channel as well. That link will also be in the description. Now, to go over his team again, he's got Ribombee, Mamoswine, Mandibuzz, Dracovish, Toxtricity, Colossal, Hatterene, Ferrothorn, and Dynamax targets Galarian Slowpoke and Pyukumuku. Last time he brought a Banded Mamoswine, a Scarf Dracovish, an Assault Vest Colossal, a Life Orb Hatterene with Trick Room, a Focus Sash Slowpoke with Trick Room, and a Curse Leftovers Ferrothorn, benching the Mandibuzz, Toxtricity, Pyukumuku, and Ribombee. Of note, this was the only time all season he brought the Slowpoke or Hatterene, and the Ribombee and Toxtricity that I was worried about did not come. His Mamoswine and Toxtricity were the most successful in kill count and KD during the season, and both look pretty good here again. Though Ribombee did not come, I'm still very worried about the possibility of Sticky Webs and the general thought of its great stab moves and speed in general. With all this in mind, I think I'm going to go for the same general approach as I did last time. More broadly, I think he's going to be bringing Mamoswine, Toxtricity, Dracovish, Colossal, and Ferrothorn for sure, with the last slot being one of the Fairies, Hatterene, or Ribombee. Mandibuzz has a chance too for Aegislash, but I'm not holding my breath, and the Tier 5s are pretty terrible here overall. On my end, my Tier 5s are pretty rubbish considering they get stopped by too many things, especially both getting stopped by Ferrothorn. Excelgor doesn't do too much either, especially considering his excellent hazard removal. And finally, Scrafty had a chance to come, but the Fairies are definitely what I'm most worried about. If he brings up both of them like I'm most afraid of, I would rather not add that liability like that into the mix, so it simply did not cut it. With all that said, let's get back to the team that I've prepared. This team may look familiar to those who watched the Week 4 battle against Clark, and that's because it is very similar. The same 6 Pokemon at least, with a few changes here and there. I'm pretty proud of the overall team building process the first time we faced off, and I see a little reason to change too much of it. Aegislash and Kyurem-Black did not change at all, keeping their leftover substitute sets, with Aegislash stalling using things like Toxic and King's Shield, and Kyurem setting up a substitute for some Dragon Dances and potentially sweeping after that with strong Bolt Spear coverage. Both sets were incredibly effective last time and kinda won the game themselves. Seismitoad also remains the same. It's fully defensive for Dracovish, others it spams knockoff. It's pretty straightforward. Celebi finally bringing back down to normal, wielding leftovers instead of weakness policy, and we've got R-Sphere on there instead of Giga Drain. I figured things like Aegislash could handle Pyukumuku, and otherwise R-Sphere now handles things like Mamoswine and Ferrothorn most importantly. Rotom-Heat has no great targets to trick Scarf onto, as things like Ferrothorn or Pyukumuku wouldn't even stay in anyways. So with that, Defog is much more important to try and get rid of webs that I could see having a better chance of coming this time around. Finally, Weezing is going to get Will-O-Wisp over Strange Steam to actually be able to do something to Ferrothorn, as well as to pressure things like Mamoswine. Otherwise, go check out the Week 4 video if you're curious about EVs and things like that, and the mindset behind all these picks. For now, let's get into the battle. Here at Team Preview, we see a couple differences from the team he brought the first time. I see Pyukumuku over Slowpoke, which makes a lot of sense, but more importantly, there is no Dracovish present, and instead we see Ribombee. This also makes a lot of sense, as Dracovish was just an invitation for Seismitoad every single time, and Ribombee's webs and stabs are super intimidating. This makes Seismitoad much more expendable, doing well against Colossal and maybe like Mamoswine or Pyukumuku. Despite that, the Ribombee lead is pretty intimidating, so I am just going to go ahead and lead off with Rotom, who can threaten a Volt Switch to break its Sash, if that's what it has, or an Overheat just to claim some kills. And he is in fact threatened out into Colossal. I get a Volt Switch off, doing only 11%, showing it's once again Assault Vest, and like I said before, Seismitoad is pretty expendable. I make the middle ground play here and go for knockoff onto the Pyukumuku, and now I have a couple decisions here. Frankly, I should have just gone into something that could not be poisoned, because otherwise this thing could lose to Pyukumuku 1v1. I have two beautiful answers in Weezing and Aegislash, and if he happens to go for a Soak, I could just switch out into the other one. But here we are, I guess, and I'm just firing off Toxic because I don't think that Seismitoad is all that useful in this battle, and he shows Block. Ah, yes, it's this set. So we're in here for the long haul. Rocks are pretty safe there to get up, and I get a lucky dodge from Toxic. We'll kind of see if that comes into play as he gets it the next turn. I really don't have much else to do here aside from go for Earthquakes that are going to do between 21 and 23% each time. We're just trading off Earthquakes and Recovers. I do like the Rocks play a lot, the fact that I was able to get that up for pretty much free. There's no chance Hatterene was coming in there, right? So we're just going to continue to stall out, and I'm just stalling for time too, until eventually it gets to Dynamax Pyukumuku, which again all it's really going to do is just max guard to try and buy a little bit of turns, a little bit of time there. The second max guard really didn't matter since he can't recover anything. It just means that I got the safe knockoff KO, just in case he decided to switch out for whatever reason. I wanted to make sure that my play was knockoff. So I survive on 4%, and that's on the back of the Toxic missing on that first time around, so we've got just a little bit of hacks there for us. Otherwise, 4% Seismitoad, pretty useless, and all it's really going to do is force the Mamoswine to come in, who did take Rocks damage, which is pretty nice. And last time we brought Mamoswine, it was choice banded, and if it is choice locked again, I want to make sure that I know what it is locked into. No reason really to risk anything else, as he could go for literally any move to KO me, and I would still die the next turn, even if he missed, say, a Stone Edge. So I'm just going to stay in, take the Ice Shard, and go out into the next appropriate mon, which is Weezing. It's really not going to take much of anything. Rotom was a little bit risky in case he wasn't choice locked here. So now I have a bit of a decision to make, right? If I think Mamoswine is going to stay in, which I don't, I go for Will-O-Wisp. That's also the optimal play if I think Ferrothorn is going to come in, too. However, it does not work very well if he goes into Hatterene or into Colossal. Colossal really needs to be hit by a Toxic first and foremost, and Hatterene and Ribombee need to be hit by a Sludge Wave. So I got multiple options. The Ribombee is the one that outspeeds me, and I really don't think Mamoswine is going to stay in. So that kind of eliminates a Will-O-Wisp from my calcs and brings in probably the most optimal play, Sludge Wave, and we're going to see that pays off quite a bit as Hatterene comes in, takes some damage, and then Sludge Wave does almost 2/3 of its health, which is pretty sweet for there. I see no reason to not just to do it again, as once again I outspeed the Ferrothorn, so if I want to do something to it next turn, I certainly can, and I'm going to go for the Will-O-Wisp as I miss. Now, I have that kind of luck with Weezing hitting Will-O-Wisps in the playoffs. The last league that I played in, I had a regular Weezing and only brought it to one playoff match. Missed both the Will-O-Wisps there in the playoffs. So the pattern continues. I missed that. Need a Leech Seed. I could try to go for Will-O-Wisp again, but it's starting to get a little risky, considering that he may not have anything for me or just switch out. So I'm just going to go into Rotom and lose my Choice Scarf along with 1/3 of my health, which may not seem all that great, but consider that I don't really need the Scarf for anything in this matchup. What am I really going to be outspeeding? The Ribombee, I guess, but even then, it's not that big of a deal as far as I can tell. It's possible that the Mamoswine is Scarfed, but he's also not going to be doing that much, or he's going to force himself to lock into a Rock move, which is not ideal for him anyways. And now I can finally hit my Will-O-Wisp, which neuters this thing almost entirely. It's got Leech Seed, so it's still a bother, but that means Celebi should be a much better answer for it at the very least. Celebi will put in more work here. And now, this is probably a little bit of a misplay because he doesn't really have a reason to stay in. I thought maybe he wants to Leech Seed or something, or maybe go for another knockoff. Considering that's what he did last turn for some reason, and I'm just going to Overheat again, but of course he makes the good play going into Colossal. He does take the Rocks damage, which is pretty nice, relatively significant, but still going to be pretty healthy there. Even after the Volt Switch, he's still at 52%. Weezing's the best answer I get, as he does, unfortunately, crit his Stone Edge, A little bit more bad luck on Weezing as Sludge Wave for some reason here. Let's kind of talk about this play, this turn a little bit. Not really sure why I'm Sludge Waving there. Again, I'm probably just worried about the Rabombi coming in. Only does a little bit of damage, and he crits yet again with a Rapid Spin, getting rid of the rocks at his feet. Sludge Wave was definitely the wrong play. I have an unmissable Toxic at my disposal. I don't really see much reason not to do that. Even if the Hatterene comes in, that's not an issue. If the Mamoswine comes in, that's fine. Ferrothorn wouldn't take any damage from this anyways. Yeah, I'm not really sure, so I just need to make sure I go ahead and Toxic this turn, but unfortunately I will be losing the Weezing to a powered-up Heat Crash. I'm getting a little bit of bad luck, but it's not the worst here. I am down 4-5, so now I do a couple of calcs, and I know that I'm going to need to bring in Kyurem-Black. Just substitute once here, possibly get a Stone Edge miss. You should have just gone for Heat Crash, frankly, but I know we may not have anticipated substitute, but substitute is what I needed for the toxic damage to tick him down into Fusion Bolt range, as out comes Rabombi. So we're back down to 4v4. I'm a bit skeptical about its intentions. I know this thing still has use for later, the Kyurem that is, so I just need to go into my nice Rabombi answer, which is Rotom-Heat, and he does in fact lay down the Sticky Webs. Nice foundation for later plays. I mean, you may be tempted to just defog right away, sure, but I'm much more worried about something else coming in, like, say, the Mamoswine, and I think it's about time we try and neuter that Mamoswine too, don't you? And we do catch the Mamoswine on the switch, but miss the Will-O-Wisp, which is huge. This turn makes me sweat quite a bit, because I would have made the right play there 85% of the time, but as it is, a second miss in the same game, I'm forced to make a play. I'm kind of forced to believe that Mamoswine is choiced here. It's definitely not Life Orb. Earthquake, I think, is pretty unlikely, followed by probably an Ice move is unlikely. Stone Edge could be it. You know, I feel like I have to make a middle ground play here, something that can threaten Mamoswine, but I can't outspeed it anymore because of the webs, and we could have at least reduced its damage output with the burn. So I'm going to make my middle ground player into something that doesn't have as much usefulness as everything else, and that is Celebi. And I get pretty lucky here as he just goes for a superpower, reducing its attack on his own, and meaning that I'm only at 78%, which, whew, oh, thank goodness, made a good play there. But this was definitely a very, very scary moment here. But it also means that I'm pretty free to go back into my Rotom as he goes into Ferrothorn, showing, of course, he is faster than the Celebi with the switches. I could kind of get into the same situation again. I kind of want to avoid that, but Defog is relatively free here. I'm very surprised that he stayed in yet again, but I suppose if he was okay with that same situation playing out, if Mamoswine gets to come in for free against the Rotom, if I were to have overheated there, then that works in his favor overall. The overheat is pretty free here at this point. I like the ability to just go straight out into Aegislash. I don't want to risk Mamoswine coming in on that and blocking a Volt Switch, but also Aegislash really starts to go in at this point. Even with Pukumuku Gun, which it had a great matchup against, I'm outspeeding two of his members. Mamoswine, I can King's Shield to figure out what he's doing. Rabombi probably doesn't want to stay in all that much, and definitely Rabombi was not going to switch in there, so Aegislash was a pretty safe switch on that play, and I get a really good double here with the Hatterene, which is fantastic. It seemed like an odd play, but Aegislash beats just about everything. So Aegislash will get itself a free KO with Shadow Ball. Hatterene gets to go down. We're finally in a much more comfortable position as Ferrothorn's going to come in. This was a bit of a 50-50 here. I click Substitute as he goes for Leech Seed. If I had gone for the King's Shield to predict a knockoff and reduce his attack, I would have eaten that Leech Seed. So this, again, 50-50. I decided to go for Sub just in case. It's not like I'm really going to lose anything aside from 25% if he did go for the knockoff. And from that point, we can just continue to play the games. Maybe go into Celebi after that. There are a couple options. But as it is, I get the nice Substitute up. Free Shadow Ball doing it, 29%. It's really not that much. I think that was a low roll, though, too, as he does get another crit on knockoff. Not that that one necessarily mattered all that much, but he knows I can't risk staying in on this knockoff, so he's going to go ahead and swap out into Rabombi as I actually make a relatively safe play and just substitute again. I know I don't need to risk this thing for much. He sets up Sticky Webs as I get Shadow off to do 65%, but here's a really cool tech in the red card, and this is actually a very fortunate play here for me. I'm just going to rewind just a little bit here. Sticky Webs with the Shadow Ball. So this is very fortunate, right? Red card is going to force out one of my 3 remaining team members, and because of webs, even without webs, 2 of those 3 are Kyurem and Celebi, which go down pretty hard to the Moonblast and Bug Buzz that Ribombee has in store for me. So even if they were Scarfed, Ribombee was going to pick up a KO unless I went into Rotom. I could, of course, switch back out into the Aegislash after that, but this kind of speeds the game up a good bit. So I got pretty lucky there. Very much not ideal for him. I'm just going to be able to eat up a Moonblast pretty easily, get rid of the webs, and at this point, Overheat will claim a kill because it only did 20% to me. Even with -1 special attack, Overheat does way too much damage, and Rotom gets to pick up that kill. We've seen this kind of position before where I have something very low percentage and in comes Mamoswine. He actually goes for an Iron Head as an interesting option there. But that means Aegislash come in here. I'll give you a hint, Aegislash does not need to switch out anymore. King Shield just to confirm that thing is choice locked. And we're going to make the same read as last time, go for the substitute on Leech Seed. It's pretty close to done from here, I believe, especially with this a little bit more posturing, get the attack down a little bit more. The sub had very little risk. This is pretty important, this drop here on the 32% Shadow Ball. So we saw I did 29% earlier, get a high roll there with 32% and a Spadef drop. Again, makes the rest of the game that much easier. I could have probably swapped out into something else if I really wanted to preserve this, or if I didn't get the special defense drop, just to ensure. Probably the Kyurem would have been a pretty nice or safe play there. But Shadow Ball is guaranteed to KO with the Spadef drop. The crit didn't matter there. And once again, we're just going to go into Mamoswine. If it is, in fact, choice locked, then I can just King Shield pretty easily to figure out what it is. And he goes for Iron Head, potentially trying to flinch things down. Probably a little scared of the Kyurem. It hits the Celebi neutrally, as opposed to Earthquake, which does not hit the Celebi neutrally. But I think Earthquake was probably the play there to make sure that he could actually KO the Aegislash, because otherwise I'm just going to stay in, Shadow Ball a couple more times, just not get flinched, and that's going to be game there. GG to Clark. He really did do a better job than most anyone else this season, especially at that one particular moment where I missed that Will-O-Wisp on the Mamoswine. It had me sweating for sure. A 3-0 victory is tied for the closest this season, and frankly, if the Mamo were something other than choiced, this could have gone much, much worse. So, again, GG to Clark. I had a lot of fun with it. We chatted a little bit after the match, but I didn't get any recording. My apologies for that. We're moving on in the playoffs. That was the quarterfinals match. We've got the semifinals coming up. Please look forward to a match against Joe 8 and the Akron Agrons for the semifinals. He's got a bit of a different team, so you will definitely not want to miss what goes down in that battle. And we'll see you all next time.